All right. That is a go with Quarantined Librarians Talk to Their Shelves. I'm going to start the first attempt at doing some book talking from the comfort of my own apartment and talk to you about the books that I personally own and are on my shelves. And we'll see how long this quarantine lasts, but in the meantime, we can give you some pretty cool recommendations for books that you can find either on Overdrive or on our Hoopla downloadable program, so that I'm not going to tease you with books that are really awesome but are only currently on our shelves in our libraries, which are currently closed until the current crisis abates. So I'm going to give you some good things, some good books to keep you busy and keep your mind in another time period, which is why I am currently dressed in kind of quasi-colonial gown because, I couldn't for my normal job, so why not now? But let's start off with the first book. I'm going to be focusing exclusively on historical fiction, which is my favorite genre. So let's see. Let me see what I've got pulled aside here. The Lady and the Unicorn by Tracy Chevalier. Now, this is the story. You might recognize the author as she wrote Girl with a Pearl Earring, so she's got a very good take on art, huge artworks, very historical ones that prove to be very defining for their times. In this particular one, it's the Tapestry, and I'm going to get it wrong, so I have to read inside to get the name of it because I don't speak French. But probably should have put notes in here before I started doing this, but it is about a family that exclusively weaves tapestries, and the lords and ladies that commission them to put together this grand, enormously huge tapestry that ends up just about ruining them. And there are a dozen little plots inside. The tapestry worker's blind daughter, who might be the best artist of them all. It's the Lady and the Unicorn tapestry, and I cannot find the name of it at the moment. I might retape this just because that's irritating me. But I actually have seen it. I haven't seen it in person. It's in France. But it is an incredible work of art. It covers several walls. Took them years to do, incredibly detailed, and every detail has a little bit of a story in here. So there's a lot of good stuff. Let's see what's next. Oh, and before I forget, The Lady and the Unicorn, you can read that on Overdrive. Let's see. This is one of my favorites. The Many Lives and Secret Sorrows of Josephine B. by Sandra Galland. This is available on Overdrive, and it's just the first book. This is just the first book in a trilogy about the life of... well, she was originally Rose Beauharnais, and I am mispronouncing that French all the heck. Eventually, she would become Josephine Bonaparte, the wife of Napoleon Bonaparte and the Empress of France during an incredibly tumultuous time. This one book is basically her entire life just before she really meets and gets to know Bonaparte. Her family's wrecked by a hurricane. She has to flee to France to try and save her family through a marriage. Her husband's a jerk. What else happens? Oh, the French Revolution, and she is a noble, so she gets thrown into prison. And it's done kind of in a diary format, very informal, but and it doesn't get all the history right, but it really gets the tone of the era right, where everything was going crazy. All of a sudden, you decided, oh, we're not going, there's no such thing as religion anymore, or, hey, guess what? We're going to rename all the days of the week, we're going to rename all the months, and you're expected to keep up with all this. So it's a window into the really crazy times of her life before it got even crazier in the next two books. So this one is available on Overdrive. What is next on my agenda? See, this is why a lady should keep her notes in order. It might help her with things like this when she really needs it. Don't tell me Oh, I think I skipped a page ahead. So, hey, this is good practice for me for future book talks. All right. The next two books are both available on Overdrive. These are books from that are written by Michelle Moran, and she's been a growing name in the historical fiction genre. She's all over the place. She captures each time period with a lot of skill. This one is kind of the first chronologically. It's about the life of Queen Nefertiti in ancient Egypt, but it's taken from the viewpoint of her sister, and it kind of gives it a nice outsider's opinion because Nefertiti literally lived through a crazy time in history. I know that sounds pretty. It's like, oh well, it was all crazy back then. It was even crazier for them then because she married the prince, and the prince he differed in religion very, very much from everybody else in the land. He decided, well, you know what? My entire country is going to just worship the one God. I know we've all been worshiping thousands of gods from before, but this is the way it's going to be. Basically has to move out into the middle of the desert, build his own city. No one likes him. His wife doesn't even really like Nefertiti, but it's taken from the viewpoint of Nefertiti's sister. I'm going to see if I can pronounce this. I can't pronounce anything tonight, apparently. Mutnojmet. Mutnojmet? They call her Mutney. So I'm going to call her Mutney. And she gives a very nice outsider's perspective into a very crazy time in Egyptian history. Oh, fair warning. At the end of the book, they deal with a kind of plague, and if that's going to make you a little nervous, especially reading right now, I would not recommend it. Second one is actually a little bit about Nefertiti's niece, Heretic Queen, and it gives a little bit of a spoiler as to how people perceive Nefertiti and her husband, and how the last remaining bit of blood in that line managed to get right back into the royal bloodlines and managed to try and save Egypt. And that brings it to another incredible Egyptian king by, let's see, Ramses the Great. Ramses the Great. You probably heard of him. He's the one that if he didn't build it, he put his name on it, so he thought the gods would think that, hey, I built it actually. It's an incredible book, and it's a very good follow-up to the Nefertiti. So those are both available on Overdrive, as well as a couple others of Michelle Moran's, which I really highly recommend. Let's see. Queen's Gambit. This one is available on Hoopla. It is by Elizabeth Fremantle, and I've really come to enjoy her books over the years. She takes a very different tactic towards books that are kind of written in the Elizabethan Tudor era. It seems like every other novel is written by Queen Anne Boleyn's handmaid. She must have had half a dozen handmaids who were all behind the curtains and watching as everything happened. This takes a very different tactic. This is told from the point of view of Catherine Parr, Henry VIII's sixth wife, and who came this close to being the third one that he executed. And it's about her life basically on a razor's edge, and how she's really only safe when her husband is dead. Not to spoil anything, she's his last wife, but I figure if you're watching this, you know a little bit about Tudor history. It's an incredibly well-crafted story. It really shows her to be the master of tact and of diplomacy that she was. So kind of think it's kind of like a historical take maybe on Game of Thrones. Although she wasn't looking to grab a throne, she was just looking to survive. All right, what is next? Oh, by the way, Queen's Gambit is available on Hoopla. The Moon in the Palace, a novel of Empress Wu. And that is by, and again, I'm going to mispronounce this, I really do apologize. The author is Wena de Rendell, and I really should know that because she actually signed this book for me. I know, a little bit of a brag, but I was at a convention. She's really nice. And this is, again, another book about intrigue inside the palace and who's going to maneuver their way onto the top. And it's about a young woman who's chosen for her intelligence, for her curiosity, for her ability to make herself stand out a little bit, and how she's kind of maneuvering her way into a high position in the court, even though at the time her only goal is just to survive, just to not get thrown off a cliff or something, not to get poisoned. She is the woman who would become Empress Wu. So this is kind of the young Empress Wu, how she gets to that position of power. Really good one. What do I have next? Oh, by the way, that's on Hoopla. This one I've been kind of obsessed with lately. It is 3 books in one. Well, actually, it's 3 books. What am I talking about? 3 books. It's called the Versailles trilogy. You can find all the audiobooks on Hoopla, and I really do recommend it because the narrator is incredible. Very, very good at what she does. And it starts with the Sisters of Versailles, goes on to the Rivals of Versailles, and finally finishes up with the Enemies of Versailles. And it's all about the different women in King Louis XV's life. And it's all about their rivalries. It's all about how either they're aiming for power. Some of them really aren't aiming for power. They really aren't. They are they're working on just trying to get by or just trying to get one up on someone else. Some of them are just wanting to be in love. But it's a hilarious series. It's so often with historical fiction, you lose that humor. It's like they're talking so much about what's going on in history, you lose the essential humor of the day-to-day. This, the author, Sally Christie, she very firmly grounds all of her characters. I mean, they're all hilarious. Some of them unintentionally so. Some of them don't know that they're hilarious. But it's a great series, very funny, and very well done. So, really, I can't recommend this highly enough. I'm also thinking that if I'm going to recommend more books with French characters in the future, I really need to know how to pronounce French. Last one. Where is it? Oh. All right. 2 books, both by Indu Sundaresan. She is one that I've been reading for a couple years. It's amazing. Starts out with the starts out with the 20th wife and continues in Feast of Roses. And it's about the Empress Mehrunisa, and again, I'm probably mispronouncing that, about how she eventually made her way from becoming, at first she was married to a very no-account man who didn't treat her that nicely, and how she made herself the 20th wife of Emperor in India. This is in Mughal India. And how she manages to tip the scale where she actually becomes the power behind the throne. And it's an incredible series, very political, very, she gets the detail just right. It's not just about the rivalry, it's about trying to lead their country into the future. And it's both of these are incredible reads. And I think there's a third one, Shadow Princess, about, I believe it's her niece. I can't exactly remember, but it was also a very good book. I just don't happen to have a copy of that. So I apologize a little bit for my rambling for my mispronunciation. I'm doing this from home. I also apologize for the lighting, but hopefully you've enjoyed a little bit about some of these upcoming, or not upcoming, they've been out for a while, about these reads, and I will go through them again just so you know. Let's see, Nefertiti and the Heretic Queen, they're both available on Overdrive. Queen's Gambit by Elizabeth Fremantle is available on Hoopla. The Moon in the Palace is available by with Hoopla, and also Empress of Bright Moon, which is the sequel to that one that is also available. The Versailles trilogy by Sally Christie, that is available on Hoopla. Feast of Roses and The 20th Wife are both available on, let's see, Hoopla Audio. Almost done. The Lady and the Unicorn by Tracy Chevalier, that is on Overdrive, and Sandra Galland's The Secret Sorrows and The Many Lives and Secret Sorrows of Josephine B. That is available on Overdrive, just the first book. So thank you for hanging in there for me. I'll get this. This is just a first try. I'll try and iron it out for the future. Thank you for listening. Let's all stay healthy out there.